Hello Palians, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about plots, specifically decorating them. Whether you are a new player, a returning one, or an old one, there is always something daunting about starting a brand new plot. So in this video, I'm going to give you some hints, some tips, and also some things that I like to do when it comes to starting a new one. I really hope that these tips will help you out, so you're not just staring at a big green rectangle, scratching your head thinking, what do I do with this plot? Don't forget to like and also subscribe for more Palia content, but let's get into the video. Over the years, I have started to do things in a particular kind of order when it comes to decorating and planning things, and I have found that this does help me out. The first place I start is deciding what buildings I want to have on a specific plot. You might have a vision for your plot. For example, if you are going to have it as your main house plot, you may want lots of buildings, but there is no rule that says you must have buildings on a plot at all. In fact, I have done a whole little plot with a little beach hut that was made just using building blocks, and that was a lot of fun to experiment with. If you do want to have buildings, it is a smart idea to get them placed down first of all, so if you need to, you can construct them and then you can map out the placement of your buildings from there. If you are new to the housing system and you want to have lots of rooms, it is also important to know that currently all of your room add-ons must be connected to either a harvest house or a grand harvest house. So picking which style of harvest house you want is a good place to start. If you are new to decorating, I do recommend starting with maybe a normal harvest house as it's not so big. I do find that with the grand harvest houses, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to figure out how you want to lay it out because there is quite a bit of space in the center, but that preference is totally up to you. You can place multiple harvest houses on your plot if you want to, but I always try to remind my friends that there is an item limit, so don't dream too big, otherwise you may feel a little bit disappointed. There is a cap on the number of buildings and buildings add-ons you can have on a particular plot, and to see this you can go into H mode and it should display there how many you've got out of the particular number you're allowed. I do feel like going up to this high, if you're going to want a really highly decorated plot, you're going to want it to have lots of clutter and things like that. Going this high will make it hard to stay under the item limit because you're going to want to decorate all of those rooms. When it comes to deciding where to place your harvest house, I would recommend not placing it right at the front of your plot, as I do find it's quite nice to have a nice fancy entrance to your plot, as it's a nice way to welcome people. So moving it a little bit further back is always handy, and it's my preferred placement of it. After you have placed your harvest house, you can then begin to map out your home and how you want it to look with the building add-ons. I recommend planning out your rooms and the layout you want before decorating, because if you start decorating and then you decide you don't like it, you will encounter the issue of potentially having to tear down some of your beautifully decorated rooms, as sometimes it can be a bit harder to move them around. Also, if you decide later on to add things such as fireplaces, this can sometimes affect the wall items you have placed, and they may get picked up automatically and sent back to your inventory. So if you add something or take it away, just bear that in mind before you do it. I think it is a little bit disheartening when all of your items kind of disappear, so that's not a good look. You can also move all of your interconnected rooms around the map by clicking on the harvest house. If you do place it and then you decide you don't like it, you can change it that way. So that is a good little thing to do, and it does make it easier if you're still in the kind of mapping out your plot phase. I do have a whole video on layout ideas for the normal harvest house if you want to check that out for some inspiration, but here are some ideas for the grand harvest house layouts if you are struggling. So for the first one, I decided to put the grand harvest house lengthways because it is quite a long house. Sometimes this means that you can't get some of the bigger add-ons such as the courtyard in. So doing it this way means that you can get the courtyard in, and you can also kind of have a different kind of approach into the house, which is quite fun. If you want to still have a main entranceway from the front of your plot, you can add on a porch and do something pretty there. And then I've just kind of got two big rooms either side. This next one is a pretty nice kind of sleek, big house design, and it's particularly good if you like to have those big open spaces. I think it would be nice to have like your living quarters, your bedrooms on the kind of more end rooms, so you can get some bathrooms attached onto there, and then have like maybe more dining room, kitchen in the center, and obviously the Grand Harvest House itself. The little hallways just add something like a little bit extra, just so you can have like a little nook and cranny in there, which is always fun to decorate. And if you wanted to, you could add in some bay windows in the middle two large rooms just to give it some detail. So this is used 4 large rooms, 2 small rooms, and also 2 hallways. This one is kind of very back heavy, so instead of having your buildings coming out of the sides, you could put them at the back, so you have all of your Grand Harvest House area, and then you walk through, and then maybe you have the living quarters at the back of the house. Obviously you could expand on this even more, as there is currently only 9 buildings here, but if you wanted to get some add-ons like the porch and things, remember to factor that in. But I really like the way the style of this one is. The Grand Harvest House, I feel, is quite hard to decorate and make it feel like a lived in space. So if you wanted like a big open area, and then you could just have your more cozy kind of spaces back here. If you want a more compact design and kind of everything in together, then this one is quite a good one. You've got lots of different rooms here, so they can all have their kind of individual purpose and kind of feature, which is really nice. Obviously you have the Grand Harvest House, which could be like your main welcoming area, then maybe one half could be like your kitchen, the other half could be like your bedrooms, so you could really kind of get a lot of space, a lot of decorating done with all of these different rooms. And finally, I just want to say, don't forget to use those hallways. I really love when you kind of walk through from one room into like a narrow hallway and then open up into another big area. So if you're wanting to use hallways with your Grand Harvest House, here's one that you can do. There is 4 large rooms here again. We've got 2 small rooms, and there is 4 hallways. So it should give you a nice mixture and make things a little bit more interesting when you or maybe your friend is touring through it. Once you're happy with your buildings and general layout, the next step that I would recommend is mapping out your pathing. This will really help if you want to have a plot that flows nicely. If you're not set on your path style, you can always change this out later. You could just put like a placeholder pathing down, but having an idea of how you want it to be placed will definitely help. I think there are kind of 2 key styles of pathing that you can go for. There's the more structured path, which may be easier to create with bigger items such as Ravenwood flooring, or the builder's furniture, using those platforms that come with that one. The alternative is that you go for a more natural path, which you can create using more curves. For this, I would highly recommend using smaller pavers, as you have more control as to how the curvature of the pathing works. Whichever way you decide about having your pathing, be sure if you want to incorporate certain areas, or maybe you want like a little pathing area or feature around a tree or fountain, be sure to think about that when plotting out your pathing. You may just want to leave like an open space, or put down like, for example, the fountain, so that you can work around it later. When doing this, you don't need to kind of add all of that clutter at this stage. You can always go back later and add things like fencing, plants, lights at a later time. With pathing out of the way, the next thing I like to do is add in larger decor items. So specifically, this will apply to things such as the yard work furniture, which is particularly important if you want to add some terraforming and height to your plot. I tend to go in with the large terrace items first, and then I layer these up, and then I will add things such as rocks and some of the branches later. At this time, I then like to go in with the trees, so you can really see how the backdrop will look, and then you can leave yourself space to add in those smaller items such as flowers, plants, and decors. When you're kind of organizing all of this, it's really important to remember that you do not have to use the whole space that is allocated to you. You can use the yard work furniture items, trees, and fencing to block off areas and create some separation. As I mentioned earlier, although the item limit is now 3,500, if you do decide to decorate the whole area on very detailed level, you will definitely reach that in no time. And for example, this plot is one of my autumn market plot, and and it doesn't take up a huge amount of space, but because there is a high concentration of items in the house and outside, I haven't actually taken up too much space on the plot. So sometimes it is about a balancing between space and clutter. I definitely prefer the clutter, so you can tell that not all of my plots will be heavily spread out. Another thing that can be very helpful when planning out your plot is deciding if you want to have a theme or a particular color scheme for your plot. I personally love giving my plots different themes, as I find it helps the direction that I want my decorating to go in. A few themes I have done in the past include coastal, witchy, autumnal, and a camping plot, but honestly you could take anything and run with it. It could even be something as simple as a color. If you do decide to have a theme on your plot, sometimes it is helpful to select some of the items and types of furniture that would suit your chosen aesthetic, and then you can kind of lay them out on your plot and see how the items really fit together prior to you starting to decorate. Think of it like a plot mood board. I don't tend to do this all that much personally, but I have a lot of friends that do this, and it really works for them. So if you are struggling to visualize things and you like to have things put down in front of you, then this may be helpful. If you do struggle to actually start decorating, then I do recommend breaking things down into sections. For example, maybe one day set yourself the goal of working on your entrance to your plot, or perhaps maybe a farm area or a particular building. I have found that setting yourself these little goals makes things feel less daunting, and you'll be able to see progress on your plot a lot quicker as you finish that one area, and then you can move on to something else. That being said, I do still have half-finished spots throughout my plots, so I'm not saying it's a totally foolproof method, but it does help. Another thing that I do find helpful to prepare before I start decorating fully is having some of my furniture crafted and some flowers and trees pre-grown. I tend to craft furniture when my inventory is getting a little full, so I always have a nice backlog of furniture I can dip into. Obviously, I have spent thousands of hours in this game at this point, so if you are a newer player, you won't have this, but I do find it is nice to start thinking about building up a little bit of a furniture collection that you can dip into when you need it, particularly if you are going to be an avid decorator and this is something that appeals to you in the game. So if you're thinking, I have so much wood, instead of selling it, maybe just pop it over to your furniture bench and see what furniture you can craft with it. There are definitely more items that I use more than others. So for example, there are more furniture sets that I do gravitate towards. The Capital Chic, for example, is one that I don't tend to craft a lot of unless it is those tables and I use them for sinking down and creating that illusion of water. The flower and trees are obviously pretty self-explanatory. I just find it so much easier to see them in place and not just a little sprout. It just helps things feel a lot more fuller. So that was my top tips about starting to plan, organize when it comes to starting to decorate a brand new plot. If you have any other tips that might be helpful to your fellow community members, please feel free to share them in the comments. I hope you have fun decorating, and I'll see you again soon with another video. Bye bye.